Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to this week's Adult Library program. My name is Laurie Osseck, and I will be presenting Love Letters of the Presidents. Now, before we begin, let me point out that we will be celebrating two holidays this month, and they almost fall on the same day. Valentine's Day is Sunday, February 14th, and President's Day is Monday, February 15th. So, what better way to celebrate the two holidays than by learning which of our past presidents were considered romantics? Let's find out. First of all, being President of the United States is considered the hardest job in the world. He is Commander in Chief of the Armed Forces, the country's top legislator, and the leader of his political party. His decisions can trigger war, inspire peace, and change the fate of every nation on earth. Each day is filled with meetings and speeches and briefings with a variety of different groups and organizations that he hardly has time to eat or sleep. So you can't help but wonder, did the presidents ever have time to be romantic? Well, as a matter of fact, some of our presidents were considered to be very romantic, 15 to be exact. Now keep in mind, this doesn't necessarily mean they were faithful to their wives, just very romantic. And we have their love letters to prove it. So this is how it's going to work. I'm going to show you the love letter, and then I'm going to read it aloud, and then I'll give you several clues as to which president wrote it, and you have to try and guess the answer. After a few seconds, I'll reveal which president wrote it. I'll also share with you some presidential facts, as well as some unusual fun facts about each one. All right, here we go. I more than love you. I'm not whole without you. You are life itself to me. And when you are gone, I'm waiting for you to return so I can start living again. Who wrote it? Clue number one, he was previously an actor. Clue number two, he always ate jelly beans. Do you know the answer? The answer is Ronald Reagan, our 40th president. That letter is just one of many love letters written to his second wife, Nancy. They were married for 52 years. And not only did he write love letters to Nancy, he also made sure that they had date night once a week, even if that meant staying home and watching movies in the White House. Ronald Reagan was a member of the Republican Party, and he was president from 1981 to 1989. He's remembered for ending the Cold War and the Berlin Wall coming down. He established conservatism and tax reform, and he strengthened the United States military. Some fun facts would be that he nearly was killed by a chimpanzee during one of his movies. His nickname was Dutch because of his childhood haircut. He used to be an FBI informant. He was the oldest president until Trump and Biden, and 10 statues have been erected in his honor. Letter number two. You are more wonderful and lovely in my eyes than you ever were before. And my pride and joy and gratitude that you should love me with such a perfect love are beyond all expression, except in some great poem I cannot write. First clue, he was president during World War I. Second clue, he's the only president buried in Washington, D.C. Who wrote it? That would be Woodrow Wilson, our 28th president. This letter was written to Edith Bowling, his second wife of 47 years. Their love grew over the years, and her name was the last thing he mentioned before he died. Wilson was a member of the Democratic Party. He was president from 1913 to 1921. He was known as the farmer's president. He supported the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote, and he helped form the League of Nations. As a child, during the Civil War, he met General Robert E. Lee. He was a student at Princeton. He made the first live remote national radio broadcast. He actually kept a flock of sheep on the White House lawn, And he was the first president to ever watch movies in the White House. Letter number 3. Sweetest little wife, I think all the time of my little laughing, teasing beauty, and how pretty you are, and how you go to sleep in my arms, and I could almost cry, I love you so. Clue number 1, he was our first progressive president. Number 2, he was a member of the Rough Riders. Who was it? Theodore Roosevelt, our 26th president. This letter was written to his first wife, Alice Hathaway Lee, who unfortunately died during childbirth after only 4 years of marriage, and he mourned her death greatly. Another thing he would do for her would be to send her flowers once a month for no reason at all. Roosevelt was a member of the Progressive Party. He was president from 1901 to 1909. He introduced the Square Deal policy to help the nation's economy. He was a big supporter of national parks and the Panama Canal, and he strengthened the United States Navy. He was the first president to ever win the Nobel Peace Prize. Believe it or not, he was a college dropout, even though he had a brilliant photographic memory. Roosevelt attended Abraham Lincoln's funeral. He did not like being called Teddy after the teddy bear was introduced. He is one of the presidents on Mount Rushmore, and he wears the eyepiece because he was blind in one eye following a boxing incident at the White House. Letter number 4. Miss Adorable, by the same token that the bearer hereof stayed up with you last night, I hereby order you to give him as many kisses and as many hours of your company after 9 o'clock as he shall please to demand and charge them to my account. Clue number 1. This was one of our founding fathers, so go way back. Number 2, he was very short, only 5 feet 6 inches tall. Who was it? John Adams, our second president. This is only one of over 1,000 love letters that he wrote to his wife Abigail during their 54 years together. He would also make time to go horseback riding with her to some very remote places. President Adams was a member of the Federalist Party, and he was president from 1797 to 1801. He, of course, played a key role in the Revolutionary War, as well as the Continental Congress. He was the very first president to live in the White House. He was a prominent political author. He insisted that people refer to him as Your Highness, which did not sit well with the American public. He was a horrible dancer, and believe it or not, there's no monument or statue of him anywhere in Washington, D.C. He died on the same day as Thomas Jefferson, his rival, and his son, John Quincy Adams, became our nation's 6th president. Letter number 5. This morning I am ambitious, proud, energetic, and very madly in love with you. I want to see people with you, walk through the throngs with you, go on a drive with you. And if I had a box, I would almost make a speech about you this minute. Plans, ideas, hopes, I'm bubbling over with them. Your first clue. He increased the troop strength during the Vietnam War, and he was vice president under Kennedy. Who wrote it? President Lyndon B. Johnson, our nation's 36th president. This is one of many letters written to Lady Bird Johnson, his wife of 39 years. Johnson was a member of the Democratic Party. He was president from 1963, following Kennedy's assassination, to 1969. He was a staunch supporter of civil rights and education. He oversaw the Apollo 8 programs and advanced space funding. He almost died in an airplane crash serving World War II. He absolutely loved baseball and even coached a boys' team. He was originally a janitor and then a teacher for a private school. And he's considered one of the most vulgar, foul-mouthed presidents we've ever had, even worse than Trump. And he was a chain smoker. Letter number 6. There are no words at my command sufficient to say the full extent of my love for you. A mad, tender, devoted, ardent, eager, passion-wild, jealous, reverent, wistful, hungry, happy love, unspeakably encompassing, unceasingly exalting, and everlastingly compensating. Wow. Here's your first clue. He established the very first budget following World War I, and he's considered one of our worst presidents. Who wrote it? President Warren G. Harding, our 29th president. This is just one of over 100 love letters written to his longtime mistress, Carrie Fulton Phillips, who happened to be Harding's best friend's wife. Now that's sad. So Harding was a member of the Republican Party. He was president from 1921 to 1923. He promised a return to normalcy after World War I was over. His presidency was absolutely full of scandals, one of the worst being the Teapot Dome scandal. He was the first president to get celebrity endorsements. He had a terrible gambling habit, and he ended up gambling away all of the White House china. He had numerous extramarital affairs, and he was known to have what is called closet sex. Both of his parents were brilliant doctors. He was originally a newspaper reporter, and he had a bad temper and was not well liked. Letter number 7. If your letters to me are as long as the Bible, they will appear short to me. Only let them be brimful of affection, as I am with you. Clue number 1. He wrote the Declaration of Independence. Number 2. His face is on the nickel and the $2 bill. Who wrote it? Thomas Jefferson, our 3rd president. This letter was written not to his wife, but to a young married lady named Maria Cosway that he was infatuated with after the death of his wife, Martha. Jefferson was a member of the Democratic Republican Party. He was president from 1801 to 1809. He was our first U.S. Secretary of State. He purchased the Louisiana Territory from France, and he launched the Lewis and Clark expedition. Jefferson was an excellent architect. He was addicted to learning and reading. He is one of the presidents on Mount Rushmore. He had a fear of public speaking and was considered a shabby dresser. He had a child with one of his slaves. He was plagued by debt for most of his life. He had a pet mockingbird. And the neatest thing about Jefferson, he introduced macaroni and cheese and ice cream to the United States after visiting France. Letter number 8. It is now 1 o'clock in the morning, the candle nearly out, and I must go to bed. May the angelic hosts that rewards and protects virtue and innocence and preserves the good be with you until I see you again, is the sincere supplications of your loving and affectionate husband. Here's your first clue. This president was the general who defeated the British during the War of 1812, and his face is on the $20 bill. Who wrote it? Andrew Jackson, our 7th president. This letter was written to his wife, Rachel, of 34 years. He would also take Rachel on private carriage rides to secret places. Jackson was a member of the Democratic Party. He was president from 1829 to 1837. He was defender of the common man and a farmer's president. He relocated the Indians, which led to the tragedy of the Trail of Tears. He was the target of the first attempted assassination of a president. He killed a man in a duel In 1806, he was prisoner during the War for Independence with the British. He was originally a saddle maker and a notorious gambler. He was very, very tall and skinny. He only weighed 130 pounds. And he had a pet parrot who used foul language, so the parrot was not allowed at his funeral. Letter number 9. Will you marry me? Oops, I forgot you did that 49 years ago today. I was very happy on that day, but I'm even happier today. You give me joy that few men will ever know. I've climbed perhaps the highest mountain in the world, but even that cannot hold a candle to being your husband. First clue. He was a Navy pilot who was shot down during World War II. Clue number 2. He had a really funky sock collection. Who wrote it? That'd be President George H.W. Bush, our 41st president. That letter was just one of many letters written to Barbara Bush, his wife of over 72 years. It was even George's idea to get their vows renewed on their 50th wedding anniversary. He's definitely a romantic. George was a member of the Republican Party. He was president from 1989 to 1993. He was ambassador to the United Nations. He was director of the CIA. He's remembered for his success during the Persian Gulf War and Operation Desert Storm. He was a huge fan of baseball. He even met Babe Ruth, which was one of the highlights of his life. He started off as an oil entrepreneur. He had a pet Springer Spaniel that you would often see in the White House named Millie. He shaved his head once for cancer awareness. He absolutely hated broccoli. And he went skydiving at the age of 90. Letter number 10. I go fully trusting that in Providence, which has been more bountiful to me than I deserve, will allow me to meet with you again sometime soon. I retain an unalterable affection for you, which neither time or distance can change. First clue. He was general of the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. Clue number 2. His face is on the quarter and the $1 bill. Who wrote it? That would be our first president, of course, George Washington. That letter was written to his wife of 40 years, Martha Washington, and it was a romance that was admired by all. He also liked to write poetry, and he wrote numerous love poems to Martha. George Washington was an independent politician who avoided political parties. He was president from 1789 to 1797, and of course, he's considered one of our founding fathers. He established the United States Navy. He only had a grade school education. He had an underground spy network. He was a huge animal lover. He had many, many dogs and birds, cats and mules. He owned a whiskey distillery. His teeth, of course, were fake, but they were not wooden, as you've probably heard. They were actually made from ivory, lead, and cow bones. And he ruined his teeth by cracking walnut shells. He is also one of the presidents on Mount Rushmore, and he never did chop down that cherry tree. And he didn't have a middle name. Letter number 11. I just got word today that my wife and sister are coming here. It will all be complicated because of the way I feel now, my Swedish flicka. All I have done is sit in the sun and look at the ocean and think of you. All of my love is yours. Here's your first clue. This president was considered extremely good looking. Clue number 2. Marilyn Monroe mean anything? Who wrote it? President John F. Kennedy, our 35th president. The letter was actually written to Gunilla von Post. She was his Swedish lover and one of many women that he had affairs with while married to Jackie Onassis. JFK was a member of the Democratic Party, and he was our president from 1961 to 1963. He was our first Catholic president and the youngest president. He established the Peace Corps. He was a big civil rights advocate and he supported economic reforms. He dealt with the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Bay of Pigs. He was the only president to win a Purple Heart for his service in World War II. He was assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald in Dallas, Texas in November of '63. His family was extremely wealthy and powerful. He won a Pulitzer Prize. He was a big James Bond fanatic, and he owned every single James Bond movie ever made. Diary entries reveal he had an affair with Marilyn Monroe. Diary entries also reveal he was similar to a Christian Grey, as in 50 Shades of Grey. Yeah, you get it. Letter number 12. I suppose that I'm too crazy about you anyway. Every time I see you, I get more so if it's even possible. I know I haven't any right to, but there are certain things that can't be helped, and that is one of them. I wouldn't help it if I could. I'm thinking up reasons to end this conference and come home just to see you. Your first clue. This president grew up on a farm in Missouri. Clue number 2. According to the newspaper headlines, Dewey defeated him. Who wrote it? President Harry S. Truman, our 33rd president. The letter was written to his wife of 53 years, Bess Truman. He also gave her a love list on each anniversary, telling her all the things he loved best about her. Truman was a member of the Democratic Party. He was president from 1945 to 1953. He made the decision to drop the atomic bombs on Japan, which ultimately ended World War II. He helped form the United Nations and NATO. He established the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan to help communist-torn countries. He ordered the Berlin airlift, which is considered the most successful mission in foreign policy. He survived 2 assassination attempts. He owned a men's clothing store at one time that went bankrupt. He fought in World War I. His grandson portrayed him in the movie Give 'Em Hell, Harry. And the S of his middle name doesn't stand for anything. Letter number 13. I love you like neither of us thought possible. I love you for everything you are, for the beautiful, caring soul you've revealed. I'm not asking much in return. All I need is your love, the best way you can give it. Your first clue. He had the Tippecanoe log cabin campaign. Clue number 2. He is one of our least remembered presidents. This might be a tough one. Who wrote it? That would be John Tyler, our 10th president. That's just one of many letters written to his second wife, Letitia, of almost 30 years. Tyler was a member of the Whig Party. He was president from 1841 to 1845. He was the very first president to serve without being elected into the position following the death of President William Henry Harrison. He established the boundaries between the United States and Canada. He helped annex Texas as the 28th state. He wasn't popular or well-liked at all, and he was often referred to as His Excellency. All of his cabinet members resigned. He was an accomplished violinist and an avid hunter. His great-grandson is still living, believe it or not. And he was the great-great-great-uncle of Harry S. Truman. Letter number 14. No written words can adequately express my deep, deep love for you. I know how wonderful you are, and I will try to be strong for you. My faith in you and God will sustain us. My love for you is everlasting. First clue. This president was originally a peanut farmer. Clue number 2, he pardoned Richard Nixon. Who wrote it? That'd be Gerald Ford, our 38th president. The letter was actually written to his wife, Elizabeth, or Betty Ford, while she was going through alcohol rehab. They were married for 58 years. Ford was a member of the Republican Party. He was president from 1974 to 1977. He's our only unelected president in U.S. history, following the resignation of President Richard Nixon and Vice President Spiro Agnew. Ford reduced inflation, unemployment, and crime. He passed legislation which helped the farmers. He mended relations with Japan. His real name was Leslie Lynch King Jr. He was a sexy model during law school. He was an excellent quarterback and actually could have played in the NFL. He was offered positions with the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. He chose politics instead. He had a role on the TV show Dynasty. He was very clumsy and a terrible speaker. And he survived 2 assassination attempts, both by women. Letter number 15. Every day and every night I want to see you and be with you. Yet I have no feeling of selfish ownership or jealousy. Let's go for a long ride on Sundays. Let's go to the mountains on weekends. Let's read books in front of fires. Most of all, let's grow old together and find the happiness we know is ours. I'm only going to give you one clue on this one because it's the only one you'll need. And here it is. Watergate. Who wrote it? You guessed it. President Richard Nixon, our 37th president. The letter was written to his wife of 53 years, Pat Nixon. He also wrote and sang love songs to her. Nixon was a member of the Republican Party. He was president from 1969 to 1974. He ended the United States' involvement in the Vietnam War. He was the first president to visit China. He founded the Environmental Protection Agency to eliminate pollution. He's primarily remembered, of course, for the Watergate scandal, which led to his impeachment and ultimate resignation. He was an outstanding law student, a commander in the Navy during World War II. He once owned an orange juice business that eventually failed. He was an avid bowler. He used the comedy show Laugh-In to help get him elected. And he was a devout Quaker and knew how to play 5 musical instruments. Okay, well, that concludes our list of the 15 presidents who were considered to be romantic because of the beautiful love letters they wrote to their wives or mistresses. Keep in mind, this doesn't mean that the other presidents weren't romantic in some way. We just don't have any public record or documentation to prove it. Now, if you have a special someone in your life and you're planning to celebrate Valentine's Day this year, I challenge you to write a letter instead of buying a card. You see, letter writing is a forgotten art, unfortunately. But a handwritten letter from the heart is so much more personal and appreciated than a Hallmark card, and it will be treasured forever. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me this evening. I sure hope you enjoyed the program. Happy Valentine's Day and happy President's Day.